And as we look at this day in history, of course, everybody remembering things far more important than hockey on the date September 11th, 2001. Thousands of Americans losing their lives in terrorist attacks on New York City and Washington, really putting things in perspective, making us all feel pretty small and telling us all our passions and interests kind of irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. But nonetheless, this feature is talking about the Screaming Eagles and what happened on September 11th in years past. And it should be noted, the terrorist attacks of 9/11 almost did directly affect the QMJHL schedule. Of course, cities all across Atlantic Canada helped with the efforts of looking after stranded flight passengers trying to get to their respective locations, and that included the people of Moncton and the Moncton Coliseum. The Screaming Eagles were actually slated to begin the 2001-2002 season at the Moncton Coliseum with a game against the Wildcats on September 15th, and there was doubt as to whether that game would be played because the Coliseum was being used to house stranded passengers. The good people of Moncton looked after their American friends. Thankfully for all involved, everybody got to go back to their respective homes, and the Wildcats were able to open the season as scheduled Friday, September 14th, 3 days after the attacks against the Halifax Mooseheads at the Coliseum. And of course, the following night, they would play the Screaming Eagles in a contest that we'll hear about in a couple of days in this feature. Getting back to what has happened on the ice on September 11th, we go to the year 2009, where the Screaming Eagles played the Halifax Mooseheads, opening their season at Center 200, and the Screaming Eagles would win 6-4 over the Mooseheads. Mike Stinziani was the star in this one, his first career hat-trick for the Screaming Eagles. He was a 20-year-old on the 2009-2010 Eagles. He would actually be traded to Chicoutimi before the year was out. He actually scored all three goals in three different ways, as he had an even strength goal, a shorthanded goal, and an empty net goal. And in addition to the three goals, he fought Guillaume Pelche, Logan Shaw, Taylor McDougall, and Jean-Sebastien Fournier, all with 2-point games for the Eagles, and Morgan Ellis chipping in 3 assists on the blue line. Cape Breton native Marc Bourgeois was making his Screaming Eagles debut after having played 2 seasons with Lewiston. Corey McIntosh and Victor Hertzberg, of course, would both have very good careers with the Screaming Eagles, making their QMJHL debuts on this night as well. And another interesting roster note here, Jean-Christophe Gauthier in the Screaming Eagles lineup. It would actually be his last game for the Screaming Eagles, seeing spot duty as a 20-year-old, as he had played parts of 3 prior seasons with Cape Breton. On the Halifax side, Yuri Chermetiev leading the way in the loss for the Mooseheads, as he had 2 points in this game. Moving ahead to the 2010-2011 season, the Screaming Eagles falling 7-2 in St. John, suffering their first loss of the year, having defeated Halifax in the season opener the night before. The Eagles actually outshot the Sea Dogs 30-25, but couldn't come up with the win against a very powerful St. John team that would go on to win the Memorial Cup that year. Thomas Yurko, the Detroit Red Wings, with a hat-trick in this game for St. John. Future Calder Trophy winner Jonathan Huberdeau with 3 points as well, as those Sea Dogs teams of that era very loaded with talent. Another future NHLer Nathan Beaulieu with an assist in this one. Alex Veroneau getting the call in goal for Cape Breton. He had a rough night as he allowed 3 goals on 8 shots and was pulled in this contest. For the Screaming Eagles, the trio of forwards having a rough night. Taylor McDougall, Victor Hertzberg, and Stephen Horrell all going -4 in this game. Frederick Piche picking up the win, playing well in the St. John goal. Michael Kirkpatrick scoring his first goal for the Sea Dogs. Of course, Kirkpatrick, a Cape Breton native scoring for the Eagles as well, that being Brad Cuzner, and another Cape Bretoner, Corey McIntosh of the Eagles, dropping the gloves in this one against Jason Cameron. Finally, we go back to 1 year ago today, where the Screaming Eagles were in Bathurst to open their season against the Titans. Of course, the Eagles will also start this season against the Titans. This game was at the KC Irving Center, and it would be Pierre-Luc Dubois playing the hero, scoring the OT winner in a 3-2 victory for Cape Breton. An historic night, actually, in Bathurst, as this was the first ever 3-on-3 overtime game in the QMJHL. Yannick Bertrand and Anthony Sorrentino, the other goal scorers for Cape Breton, and both Bertrand and Sorrentino were playing in their first QMJHL game, so a good start to their Q careers. The Bathurst goals in this one scored by Danil Maramonov and Igor Popov, a number of other Screaming Eagles making their QMJHL debuts, including Sasha Waugh, Drake Batherson, Peyton Hoyt, and Cole Reginato. Ty Fournier making his Eagles debut after being acquired from Victoriaville in the offseason for Bradley Lalonde. Alex Belanger playing very well in the win in nets, making 31 saves. Riley Pickard wasn't too bad either in the loss, as he made 28 saves for the Titans. That's a look at this day in Screaming Eagles history.